the Prophet ﷺ was always generous, but that increased in Ramadan. And Allah's Messenger ﷺ, he was the most generous of all people. And in generosity, he was like an ocean. He would give to everyone who was present. And this noble virtue was firmly embedded in his person. He was the most generous of people. And he was most generous. So most of the narrations say he was ajwadu ma yakun. Ajwadu ma yakun, but it can also be ajwada ma yakun. He was the most generous of people, and the most generous he was in Ramadan. So the most generous he would be was in Ramadan, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And again, this is a hadith of An-Nasa'i. And it's valid to say, وَكَانَ أَجْوَدَ مَا يَكُونُ, or وَكَانَ أَجْوَدُ مَا يَكُونُ فِي Ramadan. He was most generous in Ramadan. When Jibril would meet him, and Ramadan was the month when he would often meet with Jibril. Jibril would often meet with him. So Jibril would come to him more in Ramadan than other months. And from that was his coming to him to review the Quran and recite the Quran together. So Allah's Messenger would recite and Jibril would recite, and Allah's Messenger would recite, then Jibril would recite. In this way, they would mutually study, they would review the Quran. When Jibril would meet him, Shahra Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, there was much meeting between Jibril and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or Jibril would often meet the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the month of Ramadan. And Jibril would meet him every night of the month of Ramadan and would study or review the Quran with him. Yudarisuhu al-Quran. And in the last year of his life, that was the 10th year of Hijrah, Jibril would come every day and night twice. So Sayyidatina Fatima, the Prophet ﷺ informed Sayyidatina Fatima when he told her secretly that he was going to die. Jibril used to come in every Ramadan once in a day and night, and then this Ramadan he came twice because this is the last year of my life. Well, this is my last Ramadan. I will meet my Lord in this illness of mine, or due to this illness of mine. And then he asked her to come close. She cried, and then he asked her to come close, and then she smiled. And then Sayyidatina Aisha said, I didn't ever see a smile that was more like crying than today. What did he tell you? She said, I wouldn't tell the secret of Allah's Messenger. So after he passed, she said, may I ask you by Allah, what did he tell you? The first time he told me that Jibril came and studied the Quran in Ramadan every day once. And then this year twice, so I believe I'll meet my Lord from this illness of mine. And then he told me, are you not pleased to be the master of all women, or the foremost of all women of paradise, and the first of my family to follow me? La ilaha illallah. So she was happy about that. And Jibril would meet him every night in the month of Ramadan and study the Quran with him. And when Allah's Messenger would meet Jibril, he was more generous in giving good wealth and good things than a free wind that continues to blow, that has immense benefit. So he compared his generosity to a wind that brings rain and causes dry and moist earths, lands to be irrigated, and brings immense benefit. So when a wind blows, that brings the clouds, the rain falls on what's near, far, those that need it, those that don't. That's how his gifts were, his munificence. He had so much generosity and munificence that the rains of grace would fall from him upon those who deserved, did not, near, far, wealthy, poor. Everyone received his generosity. So he was compared in his munificence to a free wind, a wind that brings rain. In a narration of Imam Ahmad, he was not asked about anything except that he gave it. And it's also Sahih from the hadith of Jabir that Allah's Messenger was not asked about anything and said no. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And Al-Farazdak, he talked about Zayn al-Abidin inheriting that virtue from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He did not say no except in tashahhud. Were it not for tashahhud, his no would be yes. He only knows how to say no in La Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, indicating that he does not reject those who make requests from him. So this has an encouragement to be generous in all times, especially Ramadan. So he should increase. And when you meet the pious, when the pious congregate and increase, a desire for good is increased and spending is increased and giving. And we understand also the mutual visitations between the pious, like between Jibril and the Prophet ﷺ. And Allah's messenger loved him to visit him even more. He said, what prevents you from coming more than you do? And he said, I come with the permission of your Lord. Allah's messenger wished that he would spend, and Jibril loved to spend more time with him, with Allah's messenger on the earth. But that was all over the command of Allah, under the command of Allah. And the pious and their gatherings, when there's purity and genuineness, that's from the best of the deeds through which we draw nearer to Allah. Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas said, if one of my brothers visits me, I might leave some of my regular devotions, my awrad, and I'll say to take advantage of the gatherings, the sittings with my brothers, because awrad, regular devotion, can be made up, and sitting with brothers cannot. And they would sit, and that was as if it is a weird, and they would discuss great meanings in that. And what's understood from this hadith is that we should have a great portion of Ramadan over other times. If we recite Quran regularly, we should do more in Ramadan. We understand that from the Prophet ﷺ studying the Quran with Jibril. And this is how the pious predecessors were in their mosques in general, in this town and others. They would complete the Quran weekly, and in Ramadan every 4 nights. So they increased it a little bit, and some of them would complete more than that. We knew them in Masjid al-Saqaf every 4 nights. They had a Quran circle in night and a Quran circle by day. They would complete it every 3 days.
ومن الجفاء شديد يمر عليه الشهر ولا ختم لنفسه ختمة في شهر رمضان وهذا من عظيم الغفلة.
And he said, so the Hufad would gather in Tareem and in Masjid al-Saqaf, recite 10 ajza and a ruba by night. And it's very sad if a month passes and someone not complete the Quran in Ramadan. That's due to great heedlessness, neglect. And neglect. So he would recite Quran much in Ramadan, or the believer should recite much in Ramadan. from the greatest of dhikr or the greatest of worship. And in the hadith, he mentioned Ramadan without saying Shahr Ramadan. He didn't say Shahr Ramadan, he said Ramadan. But that is a specific chapter that will be discussed, whether you could say Ramadan by itself without saying the month of Ramadan. And then after that, the narration of Zuhri said Allah's Messenger did not curse. So he would rarely, you wouldn't hear him mention that he would curse. And if he had recently been with Jibril alayhi salam, studying the Quran with him, he was more generous with good than a free wind. Abu Abdurrahman said, this is a mistake. So it's not a sound narration to connect. They connected part of a hadith to another hadith. And Al-Imam al-Nasai, he looked at the various chains and he mentions where are there mistakes. There are many hadiths that are sahih in their chain. However, the text is different than it should be. And Imam al-Nasai is good for that. He mentioned that. And the Imam al-Nasai, he mentioned, he narrated this hadith from Muhammad bin Ismail al-Bukhari. And some of them denied that, but then they studied it and they said he did meet him. And in this hadith, he said, this is Muhammad bin Ismail narrated to me, who is al-Bukhari. Al-Imam Bukhari is Muhammad bin Ismail. And this is al-Bukhari. So the exacting scholars, they researched it, and he had in fact met Al-Imam al-Bukhari. And Al-Imam al-Nasai also took from a number of the teachers of Al-Imam al-Bukhari. So he met that generation, and he took from. The highest of chains in al-Bukhari goes to three hadiths with three narrators in the chain. The highest hadith of Al-Imam al-Nasai is with 6 narrators. So he is later, but he still met that generation. And Muhammad bin Ismail al-Bukhari, Allah's good pleasure be upon him, he had a long service and station in service of the hadith of Prophet Muhammad, and he had a very rare level of memorization and strength and precision. The great scholars of hadith, the masters of his shuyukh, they would come back to him. And if he narrated a hadith, they wouldn't hesitate about it due to their confidence in his strength in hadith and his clear understanding and penetrating to subtleties that many others were unaware of. So he was someone of a distinction and a selection with love, honesty, and sincerity and scrupulousness and great taqwa. So Aisha said Allah's Messenger did not curse enough to even mention or that could be remembered. And then he mentioned the chapter of the virtue of Ramadan. If when Ramadan enters, the month of Ramadan enters, the doors of paradise are opened. So when these doors are opened, those who perform good deeds find it easy for them to perform good deeds. And the doors of hellfire are locked or closed. Allah la ilaha illallah. And they say in Ramadan, And Ramadan, it comes from Ramda,
من جملة
Rami the Nahar, when the day becomes intensely hot. And they say that the time of naming the month coincided with the extremely hot time.
شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن
Also from the wisdoms of it being called Ramadan,
تقريبا الرحمة للعباد
because
في
it
بعض الروايات
burns away
ولكن
sins.
بعضهم جعله من
Yarmud
في الرواة
burns away the sins. The month of Ramadan in which the Quran was revealed. The doors of paradise are thrust open, bringing mercy near to the servants.
بالفتح يدل على أن الرواية
In some narrations, the doors of mercy, but they said that is a change due to the narrators. The origin of that hadith is that the doors of paradise are open and the doors of hellfire closed.
أبواب الرحمة رواية بالمعنى
So it's not mentioning the doors of the earth, the doors of wrath. So what's mentioned is the doors of paradise and the doors of hell. So the basis in that, or the asl of the original narration is the doors of paradise, not the doors of mercy. Someone who mentioned that was translating by meaning. And the doors of hellfire are closed, and the demons are chained, or shaitans are chained. The shaitans are chained. In a nation, there's narrations sufidat, susilat that have the same meaning, more or less. Fettered, tied, bound. In a narration, marada ash-shayatin, the stronger ones. So what's understood from that, or there's a difference of opinion of that is, are all of them or just some of them, the strong of them, so they don't ruin the people's fast? And then others, many of the exacting scholars, they said that. They said people like us, even a small shaitan can play with him, affect him. They don't need the great strong ones. Those that are chained in this month, the little ones trip them up. They're tied until the eve before Eid. They're released and they're enraged, trying to harm the people on the Eid. They want to ruin the people's fast, and they're not able to do that. Or excuse me, and what they did in Ramadan, may Allah make us firm in taqwa. And Allah is the most merciful of the merciful. MashaAllah, la quwwata illa billah. This hadith indicates that paradise and hellfire exist, and they have doors that are opened and closed. And also this affirms the existence of devils and that they are bodies, even if they are made from fire, however they can be tied. And clarifying the greatness of Allah's generosity and lutf, His gentleness. Alhamdulillah. May Allah favor us to attain the highest of the piety of this time. And may Allah give us His munificence secretly and openly. And then the Shaykh indicated a difference of opinion about Az-Zuhri. And it's just different narrators that narrated from Zuhri. So they had differing phrases. So there's various differing narrations from a specific narrator as Zuhri. And this is a chapter of about the ikhtilaf of Az-Zuhri. May Allah chain and keep the devils away from us in all time. May Allah make us of His servants over whom the shayateen have no power. He is the most generous of the generous and most merciful of the merciful. So next it is from the book Bahjah al-Mahafil. And this next combination of hadith about the marriage of Zainab radiallahu anha bint Jahash, it shows the Prophet ﷺ's great station and that Allah loves what he loves and hates what he hates. And Sayyidatuna Aisha said that you keep those who you will and remove those who you will. And she said, I see that Sayyidatuna Aisha said that it's as though the prescriptions correspond to his inclination. And also the Quran was revealed when they had stayed too long in his home. And also we see his great modesty because he kept entering and exiting his home, waiting for them to leave until Allah revealed on his behalf the truth and forbade the creatures, forbade people to annoy him, and that they should prefer for him in what he loves, so that Allah prefers what he loves.
وحتى إذا خطب أحد من المؤمنين يخطبها إلى أبيها يخطبها إلى أهلها منهم وإذا تمت الموافقة يأخذ منهم العقد.
الله أكبر.
مع أنه هو ليهم كلهم بيجوز له لكنه وهكذا إلا زينب هذه لما أنزل الله وسط القرآن زوجناكها.
So the Prophet ﷺ, when he would marry, he would always go and propose through their father, even though he was the wali of all of them, and except Zainab. Zainab was married to him above the 7 skies, and right in the Quran Allah said that I have married you to her, or we married you to her. And also here is a great virtue of Zainab bint Jahsh and her brother and Zayd bin Harith. When Allah mentioned him by name in his beginningless eternal speech, one time without mentioning his name explicitly, and the second time mentioning his name, and that is Quran that is recited in the prayer niches over the passage of the ages. No other Sahaba is mentioned by name in the whole Quran other than Zayd. So Allah indicated the other companions. For instance, in the cave, when he said to his companion, referring to Abu Bakr, but he didn't mention his name, Zayd was the only one mentioned by name. And Allah did not mention the proper name of any woman in the Quran except Maryam, not the wife of Fir'aun, not the mothers of believers, but except Maryam. She's mentioned by her proper name in the Quran. And like the Sahaba, no one's name was mentioned specifically in the Quran except Zayd. And also someone who sends a gift should say that, it's apologize for it not being more, like Sulaim did. And also the revelation of the veil, and then it is great benefits. And then after that, someone couldn't look to a woman who was not his unmarriageable kin, with or without desire. And also the Prophet ﷺ, he fell from a horse, his leg was put in a splint, and he was praying sitting down, and for a period of time the companions were praying behind him sitting, but then that was and they would visit him as well, and that was abrogated. So after that abrogation, and this is the 5th year of the life of after Medina, after the Hijrah, many events happened. So he fell from a horse, and was not able to stand for a period of days. And the companions visited him at his home, and some of the prayer times would come, and they wanted to pray with him. So they'd rather pray with him than go out into the masjid. And if they were going to, if they were going to have great reward in the masjid, he would have said, "You go out to the masjid." But the prayer behind Allah's Messenger, where are you going to find something like that? And wherever he is, praying behind him was greater. And they say the prayer of the one on Hajj at Mina is better than his prayers in the Haram. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ prayed there. So following him. So then what about praying directly behind him? So after years after him, our praying in Mina is still better, even than the Haram. So what about prayer directly behind him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And in the 5th year, he went on the battle of Domat al-Jundub. And he left a certain companion over al-Medina. And the Prophet ﷺ returned without confronting the enemy because they heard his approach and they fled. They were terrified and they fled, so he returned to al-Medina. And also the battle of Bani Lahyan. And it was taking revenge for Khubayb and his companions. So the Prophet ﷺ went out as if he was going to the north, to Syria. So then when he went to them, he found that they hid in the mountains. So this is from Imam al-Nawawi's Majmu'ah with the author's, with Habib's chain to the author in that book. Imam al-Nawawi said, a secondary question, Farah. Our companions differ about Ashura. Was it obligatory in the beginning of Islam or not? And then they differed with two views, perspectives. The soundest of them, and that's the clear madhab of Shafi'i and most of our companions, and that's the explicit statement of Shafi'i, that it was never an obligation to fast Ashura. The second view that is in the madhab is that it was obligatory, and that's the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa. And there are numerous Sahih Hadith about it, that Allah's Messenger sent a man on Ashura to his people to order them to fast. And he said, and it's also narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. And there's a narration of Aisha that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered the fast of Ashura prior to Ramadan being made an obligation. So when Ramadan was made an obligation, those who wished fasted Ashura, and those who wished it broke it. It's narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. And it's narrated by Ibn Umar that Allah's Messenger ﷺ fasted the day of Ashura and the Muslims prior to Ramadan being made an obligation. So when Ramadan was made an obligation, the Prophet ﷺ said, those who wish may fast and those who wish may refrain from fasting, narrated by Muslim. And Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he said that is the day that he would Allah's Messenger fast prior to Ramadan being revealed, and when Ramadan was revealed, he left it. And it's narrated by Muslim from Jabir bin Samurah that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered us to fast Ashura and encouraged us. And when Ramadan was obliged, he didn't command us or prohibit us, and didn't check on our doing that. And it's narrated by Muslim from Ibn Abbas that the Prophet ﷺ ordered that it be fasted, and this is also narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. The companions of Abu Hanifa said the order here is for obligation, and the Prophet ﷺ said the one who wills may fast and the one who wills may break it, is proof that he gave them a choice that is the sunnah of the day. Were it not obligatory prior to that, he wouldn't have given them the choice. And our companions took as evidence that it was not obligatory, rather a sunnah, from hadith, the Sahih of Abu Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan. On the day of Ashura, he said, I heard Allah's Messenger ﷺ say, this day of Ashura, it's not been prescribed for you to fast it. So those who will may fast it, and those who will may break it, narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. And Abayki said, it was never prescribed for you. Lam yuktab alaykum. Lam negates the past, so it was never prescribed. And it's also narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, if day of Ashura is a day that the people would fast in ignorance. So the one who loves to fast it, let him fast. The one who dislikes it, let him refrain from it. It's narrated by Muslim from Sayyidatina Aisha that Ashura was the day that Quraysh fasted in the time of ignorance. And when Islam came, Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, the one who wishes may fast it, and the one who wishes may refrain, narrated by Muslim. The response to these hadith is that these confirm the praiseworthiness, combining the hadith, and when the various hadith, and when he said when Ramadan was made an obligation, meaning the extreme emphasis was removed. So this is a response to all of the hadith, that the command was for recommendation and a confirmation of the recommendation. And Ramadan came in the second year, not the first year. So the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't attend Ashura the first year. So he attended Ashura the second year. So that was only, we were to say it was an obligation, it was only an obligation for like 8 months. If we say that it was obligatory, however, the exacting scholars of the companions of Shafi'i, they said it was not ever an obligation. It was a confirmed recommendation. And then the confirmation of the recommendation, the ta'akkud, that was removed and it remained recommended. And the obligatory fast was the fast of Ramadan. And they fasted it in Jahiliyyah, the remnants of the religion of Ibrahim. So then when he went to Medina and found the Jews fasting, he said, ask them, why are they fasting it? And they said of Musa, and he said, we're more deserving of Musa than you. So Ashura had a virtue with the prophets, even from the time of Noah. So that continued, and then it coincided that Fir'aun was drowned, and Banu Israel and Sayyidina Musa were saved on Ashura. From the speech of the Prophet ﷺ, oh Ghulam, oh boy, be mindful of Allah, He'll protect you. Be mindful of Allah, You'll find it before you. Get to know Allah in ease, and Allah will know you in hardship. If you ask Allah. If you seek aid from Allah Ta'ala. Were all of the servants to come together to benefit you with something that Allah had not written, you wouldn't be able to. And if they were to come together to harm you, with something that Allah has not written against you, they would not be able. The pens have been lifted, and the scrolls have been, or the pens have dried, and the scrolls have been rolled up. And he said, when you're able to worship in pleasure and certitude, then do so, and otherwise patient in what you dislike, there's great good. And know that victory is with patience, and with ease comes hardship, and two hardships will not overcome. One hardship will not overcome two eases. And be good to your neighbor, and you'll be a believer. And love for people what you love for yourself, you'll be a Muslim. And don't laugh too much, it will cause the heart to die. my Lord ordered me to have fear of Allah, publicly, privately, to be just, whether happy or displeased, to be frugal, whether I'm wealthy or poor, and that my silence be reflection, my speech be dhikr, my gaze be a lesson. I command the good, and that I be good in demeanor. Good demeanor is 1/25th of prophecy. 4 sunnahs of the messengers: modesty, perfume, kuhul, and a siwak. And the Prophet ﷺ said, if someone sought refuge in Allah, Allah gives him refuge. Someone asks Allah, Allah gives him. Someone who prays to him, he responds. No, excuse me. He said, if someone asks you by Allah, give to him. Let none of you die except that he has a good opinion of Allah. Allah says, I am as my servant believes me to be, and I'm with him when he prays to me. And he said, I'm having a good opinion of Allah's Ta'ala is from good worship. And the Prophet said, have taqwa of Allah wherever you are, and follow an evil deed with a good deed. It will erase it and show good character to people. And here this is an encouragement to worship Allah and obey Him in good pleasure and love and esteem. If you're able to worship Allah in good pleasure and certitude, then do. And if you don't reach to that degree, being patient in what you dislike, there's great good. And then you'll ascend from patience to pleasure in worship. Rida, from sabr. Those who worship in rida, their reward is multiplied. They're happy about worshiping. Their hearts are tayyib. Their station is, the rewards of the deeds is multiplied. That was from the Majmu' of Habib Abdullah bin Sayyid bin Tahir. Is reading very fast, from a book of Habib Omar, in a commentary on a poem of Imam Haddad. The reader is saying, may Allah benefit us by your knowledge. You said, the scale of the Sharia in spending is that you be magnanimous and do not fear poverty. However, you should give priority to obligations or a recommendation, and then be moderate in supporting yourself and your elect people that are close to you. Don't go beyond what's moderate in your personal affairs. Don't emulate those who are luxurious in their worldly affairs. They are not your example or for you to emulate them. Allah has made your exemplar, the prophets, messengers, the Siddiqeen, the Salihin. Look how their states were. They are the exemplar. They are the example. They are the deference is made to their states. And then look at your obligatory expenses or recommendations, give them priority. And then don't fear poverty. Your Prophet ﷺ is more merciful to us than ourselves, our fathers, our mothers. He didn't fear poverty for us. He said, I swear by Allah, I do not fear poverty for you, but I fear that the world will be open to you as it was to those before you, and you'll contend for it as they did, and it will destroy you as it destroyed them. And from the most severe difficulties or problems of them. So the Prophet ﷺ, so he indicated, spend the excess beyond your obligations. And when you support yourself, be moderate. Be moderate in your expenses on yourself, fulfill your obligations, and then spend beyond that your excess. So Zayn al-Abidin saw a young man who said, I'll give you. Notice, Sayyidina Zayn al-Abidin, he said, an elder gave him advice, be moderate in your support of yourself. And be generous. And be generous. And he said, organize, moderate support for yourself and your family. He said, Allah won't sever this for a person, and then he'll be given tawfiq to do good after that. A cause of the problems of the nation of Muhammad is they're competing for the dunya. For example, what's happening in Iraq
أن كانت
or in Somalia. Don't think it's because of poverty.
ولا توجد
There
فيها
are
مشكلة.
places that are
ربما
much
عاش
poorer than
الناس
those
فيها
places.
عيشة كريمة طيبة، لكن سر التنافس على الدنيا هو الذي أوقعنا في هذا. كلما أغريت منا
And
طائفة
Habib
أخرى
said that
طيبة،
he
وكلما
spoke
أغريت
this at the
امرأة
time of
بوسط
problems in those
وسلطة
places. He said there are
أو
poor
دولة
places that don't have these same
أقبلت
problems.
على
People
ذلك
might live a
التنافس
noble
عليه،
way, in a good way.
أقبلت على ذلك
However,
ونازعت
competing
عليه.
for the world, that's what caused these problems.
فكان ذلك هو سبب البلايا وسبب
When
هذه
one
الفتن
group was
والحرب
turned against the
والدنيا.
other, they accepted that for the sake of dunya. So then you had these, this sedition was sown and the competition.
على ذلك المسلك المعوج.
So that is the cause of these trials, this discord that occurred in the Ummah. The Prophet Muhammad said, I fear for you that the dunya will be open for you as it was for those before you. You contend for it as they did. That crooked way, that if it will cause you to be destroyed as those who before you were destroyed by contending for the world. And these circumstances contend to make it difficult for the Ummah. The people of true with Allah, they are aided with wonders of gentleness for Allah despite the difficulties of Ummah, that which suffices them and heals them, and they're in a state of divine receiving Allah's concern. Even when the Dajjal comes out in the greatest trial, the desert Arab said, O Messenger of Allah, if I act like I have faith in him, I act like I have faith in him and that I eat his food and then I disbelieve in him. The Prophet smiled and said, no, Allah will suffice you, give you wealth and sufficiency in the way he does his servants, even in those difficult circumstances. Allah is easy and gentle with the believers. Be true to Allah and be steadfast, and Allah will give you what you need. And don't, in the likes of those circumstances, say, I'll act as though I'm a disbeliever and eat the food of the Dajjal and then return to faith. The Prophet Muhammad did not open this door. And this type of thought, the Prophet ﷺ repudiated it. So don't think this way. Think how to be upright in that which surrounds you, making what surrounds you upright. And that is a cause of relief. And there will be an escape from difficulties through the Sharia without you neglecting any of the Sharia. And that's from the speech of Sayyid al-Habib Omar in a commentary on a poem of Imam Haddad. After the reader read, al-Habib Omar just said, and Allah knows best. And now there is a poem that is being sung, and hopefully the tech team can make it so you can hear that.
يا فاتح الباب يا فاطر نسألك نفحات قربية تمطر سحبها على قلبي يرقى مقامات علوية بها ينشرح صدري ويدرك أسرار وهبية من فضل مولاي قد جاءت من غير أعمال كاسبية من حسن الظن بالمولى يدرك مقامات عندي يصلح شؤونه وأحواله حاجاته الكل مقضية يا الله ولو مدد بيجري له دايم علي كيفية وتصلح أحواله الأخرى دنيا وأخرى ودينية يا ربي كم عابد قربته دايم ليالي قادرية في كل ساعة وإمداده من فيض مولاه حقية يا الله.
أحسنت إبراهيم.
رمضان شهر التجلي من إله الكريم رمضان فيه العطاء من فضل ربي عظيم رمضان فيه الكرم من خير واهب كريم كم من منح كم عطايا ما تقوم بقيم وكم من أسرار فيها كل لب يهيم الباب أهل الهدى من كل عارف حليم رحمة صبت عليهم من إله رحيم فالكل أمسى لحبه فالكل أمسى لحبه في المحاضر نديم الكاس داير وساقيهم نوال فخيم يا من له قلب راغب في المعالي سليم اسمع كلامي وكن للرمز يا ذا فهيم فهي دلالة من نور الصراط القويم بها علم كل عارف في البرايا عليم سقوا كؤوس التجلي من خطاب الكليم وواجهتهم مناح ما تحتصي جميم سبحان من خصهم ذو الجود أكرم كريم جد السرانا تهيأ للنعيم المقيم نسلك صراط النبي خير الورى المستقيم من قد وصفه المهيمن بالرؤوف الرحيم عسى في حماه الزين يا اخوه نقيم من قد وصفه المهيمن بالرؤوف الرحيم عسى في حماه الزين يا اخوه نقيم هو سري وروحي وهو ذخر العظيم عليه صلى إلهي عدها بالنسيم ولخصوص ابنته الذخر كنز العديم فذكرها يا جماعة هو شفاء السقيم رمضان شهر التجلي من إله الكريم رمضان فيه العطاء من فضل ربي عظيم
ثبتنا الله الصراط المستقيم رفعنا إلى أعلى مراتب الصدق معه في كل قول وفعل ونية وقصد وتكليم ودفعنا عنكم الآفات والعاهات وبلغنا فوق الأمنيات رفعنا عليه المقامات ضمن في سلك خير البريات حنا علينا روحه والأرواح الطاهرات بموفر حظنا من هذه الليالي وهذه الأيام والجود والإكرام والفضل والإنعام ثم خص به خيار الأنام من كل من استقام وممن تنزه باطنه عن الأدران وعن الآثام وأن يمنحنا الرضوان ويصلح لنا كل شأن بارك لنا في رمضان وليالي وأيامه كلها سعدنا بالسعادة الكبرى تولنا في الدنيا والأخرى يفرج كروب المسلمين إن شاء الله يدفع المصائب ويبعدنا عنهم حول الأحوال الأحسنها اختمنا بك حسنه وراض عنا يعيد ليلة منتقل إلى رحمة الله تريب بن الحبيب حسين بن أحمد بن الله الحسيني الشيخ بكر مساء الله يجعل قبر روضة من الجنة ويجعل عذاب الدرجات منتقل إلى رحمة الله عبد الرحمن بن علوي بن عبد القادر بن سمير يجعلهم الله في المقدمين إلى منازل التكريم والجود مع المقربين ومع المحبوبين ومع الصديقين وأن الله يرافقهم بالنبيين ويخلفهم في أهلهم وذم فينا فخلف الصالح ويرفع عن المقام العالي وينضمنا في سلك أهل الصدق معه في كل حال ويكفينا ما همنا من أمر الدارين وما لا أنتم بهم وعبيم يكون همنا وينوب عنا في الهم سواء صفي بواطننا عن كل الالتفات إلى ما عدا والتعلق بمن سواه ظاهرا وباطنا ويبارك في جميع أولادهم وأحفادهم وأزواجهم وذراريهم بركة تامة ويسير بهم سائر الصالحين المصلحين والهداة المهدى يختمنا أجمعين بأكمل حسن الخاتمة وراض عنا في خير لطف وعافية إلى حضرة النبي
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه. الفاتحة. اللهم صل وسلم
ربنا انفعنا
بما علمتنا رب علمنا الذي ينفعنا رب فقهنا وفقه أهلنا وقرابات لنا في ديننا أنثى وذكر رب وفقنا ووفقهم لما ترتضي قولا وفعلا كرما وارزق الكل حلالا دائما وأخلا أتقياء علما نحظى بالخير ونكفى كل شر ربنا أصلح لنا كل الشؤون وأقر بالرضا منك العيون واقض عنا ربنا قبل أن تأتينا رسل المنون واغفر واستر أنت أكرم من ستر وصلاة الله تغشى المصطفى من إلى الحق دعانا والوفاء بكتاب فيه للناس شفاء وعلى الآل الكرام الشرفاء وعلى الصحب المصابيح الغرر اللهم اهدنا بهداك واجعلنا ممن يسارع في رضاك، ولا تولنا وليا سواك، ولا تجعلنا ممن خالف أمرك وعصاك. وحسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. يا ربنا اعترفنا بأننا اقترفنا، وأننا أسرفنا على لظى أشرفنا، فتب علينا توبة تغسل لكل حوبة، واستر لنا العورات وآمن الروعات، واغفر لوالدينا ربي ومولودينا، والأهل والإخوان وسائر الخلان، وكل ذي محبة أو جيرة أو صحبة، والمسلمين أجمع آمين. ربي اسمع فضلا وجودا منا، لا باكتساب منا، بالمصطفى الرسول نحظى بكل سول، بالمصطفى الرسول نحظى بكل سول، بالمصطفى الرسول نحظى بكل سول. صلى وسلم ربي عليه عد الحب، وآله والصحب عداد طش السحب، والحمد للإله في البدء والتنادي.